Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Ball Watching, a St. Louis City SC podcast, joined here by myself, Jake Koenig and Justin Graham, co-host extraordinaire, with us here in the room. Justin, it is March 27th. We are edging towards the end of the month and into April. How are we feeling on this midday Wednesday?
It's pretty insane that it's already the end of March and this weather's been the way that it is. I mean, it's been so cold, like in the 20s or 30s and wake up. But looking at it this weekend, it's going to be 77. I wish the game was at home this weekend, shipping out to RSL, but maybe try to get around to golf in with the late night games. That's till 8:30 on Saturday night with it being out on the West.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. God, you love the Western games. Just phenomenal. I would kill to be in the Eastern Conference. It would be so convenient for all these game times, but one can dream. So getting into the episode for you all today, we have quite a few things to cover in the very beginning, just kind of some news and an exciting thing that we all found today, courtesy of a listener, which we'll get into. And we've got obviously our full preview of Real Salt Lake and City as we head to Salt Lake for this one. So it should be exciting on the weekend here. I know I'm really excited for it, but I'm also excited to cover some of this news before. So we've got the first thing on our agenda, Justin, the U.S. men's national team. We did a poor job mentioning the game was happening in our recap because it was happening that night. I totally forgot to mention it on the recap, but the boys in the red, white, and blue came out and Trace Acero. No,
Dos Acero.
Dos Acero, yeah. Dos Acero in Mexico. Sorry, I get the numbers mixed up now because they haven't beaten us in what feels like forever now. It actually hasn't been since 2019. So it's getting longer and longer every single match. And it just looks like, honestly, the chasm's getting wider and wider between these two teams. But phenomenal to have this team capture a three-peat in the CONCACAF Nations League. Good to see the guys looking better. And Gio Reyna, bless his soul. What a player.
I mean, I would say, Jake, how do you forget that it's Dos Acero? Because one, you're already skipping over it with the absolute banger by Tyler Adams right before half. I think he knew that he was on a minutes restriction. Don't know if he would have came out of half if we weren't already winning, but he had to have known because he shot that shot from a good 35 yards out, absolute missile into the left of or Ochoa's right, his left. And then also Gio puts us back up and kind of puts it away in the 63rd. Pulisic did a dirty little flick over the sliding defender, just a little nick over the top of him, crosses it in, a poor clearance on their end, and Gio does like a half volley into the near post in the lower corner. Gio, with that, got the CONCACAF Nations League's Best Player Award. And then we also had the Best Goalkeeper with Matt Turner. So 2 awards with the boys for getting the championship as well. So 3 total trophies. One quick sad comment that I think just needs to be addressed but doesn't need to be dwelled on is the fact that the game was delayed twice close to the end, unfortunately, due to the discriminatory chants of the Mexican fans there. So there's honestly no place for that in soccer. There's no place for that in the world. I really wish that would get cut out. And I think they're trying to do what they can to try to make that happen, but it's just something I hate to see.
Yeah, I hate to see it as well. I kind of feel for the players, even the Mexican players out there, because they don't want that to be said. You know, they've come out and said that they don't support that and there's no place for that in the game. Yet their own fans, it feels like, especially because they always lose to us recently, always reach down into the depths and pull this chance out for all of those losing matches when it gets to kind of like, we're out of this game time. It really sucks. But I really hope that FIFA, the governing body, whoever, just sticks it to them at some point. Like, they need to play every single time this happens, 3 games behind closed doors. That's the only way you get the fans to shut up and listen and take a look inward and see, what they're doing is wrong and ultimately pay for it. I mean, they are such a well-supported team. I feel like the Mexican fan base is a dream for many national teams to have that level of religion almost attached to your team. So it's a really big bummer, marred by some gross, racist behavior. So bummer, but great for this team to get this and get some momentum heading into Copa America this summer. I'm really, really excited for it. We'll talk more about expectations, where we should land there on some future episodes, but got to cover that. Got to cover the boys in the red, white, and blue. But getting a little bit into City before we get into the preview, Justin, I was a little bit shocked, but Josh Yarrow made the match day team of the week on the bench. But I'd say a really nice honor for him. I don't know if that's his first time ever. I doubt it for some reason, but making the team, getting his first goal in the MLS, his first goal at City, of course, and an all-around decent performance. And so I think it was a nice kudos to him. And I think wherever we got guys on that list, I feel like we're performing well.
Absolutely. And the one thing I was going to say is I feel like you have a good chance of making it when you score as a defender.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
what the hell? They did not have our boy Kip Keller on there. They put Matt Miazga in the middle, but Kip Keller's not even on the bench either. And he had a great goal, a great header for them as well.
It's an agenda. MLS is trying to hold Kip down.
That's bad. I don't like that.
Yeah, I don't either. But I did like seeing Yarrow there. We slid a little bit in the power rankings week over week going into this week, down to 12 from 8 prior. I still don't think like that's anything really much to care about. And I think RSL is sitting at just a couple spots behind us. So it's a battle of two kind of on the upper end, but kind of more middle end in terms of power rankings for this week. And just injuries before we get to the exciting part of the show, at least for us, is Parker could be back this weekend. I know we were all a little skeptical, like what's going on behind the curtains here with this injury. And all of a sudden we learn that he's going to come back and we're like, yay. But right as we get that news, we are also getting it coupled with the bad side. And that is that Nilsson broke his rib in the last game, or I guess maybe the training. I think it was probably during the game. So he will be at least out this weekend. That sounds like a brutal injury.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough one. I mean, that's literally, I put it on our Instagram story. It's a roller coaster, right? We can't stay healthy so far this year, but somehow these guys keep battling. And quickly back to the power rankings, and Emily put it in here as well. They mean nothing. I mean, honestly, Jake, we went up from 13 to 8 and now from 8 to 12 all within a week, especially this early in the season. Like there's games, there's losses. It doesn't matter. It's way too early to get that small of a sample size. And I don't listen to them because last year we were at the bottom during all of them as well. But one thing I'm going to say as well, Jake, it looked like you're about to cough there. Get some soul juice. Go to souljuice.com, get 20% off using code BALLWATCHING. Go to Deerberg, Schnucks, Straub's, Sam's, Costco's, gas stations. Get some soul juice on this beautiful day.
All right, Justin. Well, before we kick into the preview, I had an awesome time today. I'm just going to be totally frank here. I was not expecting this, but listener Ryan shot me a DM on Twitter and said, you've got to check this guy out. And it was a link to a TikTok. I'm not one of those young folk. I don't have TikToks. I would have totally missed this. And I clicked into it, and it was a video of a man playing an ode to St. Louis, basically a St. Louis City SC themed song, and what I would call kind of like a bluegrass or folk kind of format. And I'm like, inject this into my veins. It was phenomenal. It reminisced me of like the Johnny Cash type music in his catalog. And the fact that he built it around city, he had verses around Berkey and verses around what the city park means to him. And I could not reach out to this guy. So I called this man named David Whitnauer. And I said, David, we got to play this song on the show. He was such an humble and amazing man. He's got experience doing songwriting. He's sold some of his work to the Backwoods Bluegrass Band, if anyone's heard of them. Again, amazingly humble, awesome person, now retired. And this is his kids holding him to this, saying, you got to go, express your talents and do something that, you can have an impact on people. And this is him doing so. So I wanted to play this for you all. We're just going to play a clip of it and make sure that you all go and check the full version out. We'll put it on our socials on Facebook and TikTok. But this is David Whitnauer, and this is his Ode to City. And I'm just calling it Ode to City. That's not the name of it, but hope you all enjoy.
When there's a match in City Park, there's nary a seat to spare. The pounding drums and the waving flags, half the city is there. I look around and I think to myself, how did this come to be? Here we are with a kick-ass team called St. Louis City SC. One more time. Yeah, welcome to St. Louis. We'll meet you on the pitch. We'll run your ass across the grass and leave you in the ditch. We'll show up like an army, yeah, drinking our frothy brews. 'Cause City SC's the team to beat, and you're probably gonna lose.
Justin, immediate reactions. Is it not a banger?
You sent it to me at work, and you're like, hey, I got something. And I clicked on it. I'm like, what kind of TikTok is Jake sending me at work? Like, I didn't even know Jake knew what TikTok was. And I clicked on it, and I showed it to everybody at work. I mean, what? It's a 3-minute and 40-second song in total. Like he said, he's got a verse about Berkey. Then he goes into Santa Claus and how he leaves gifts, goals. And then he goes into, obviously, what we just watched with the fans in the stadium. And it's just it's catchy, dude. It's great. And I love promoting stuff like this for St. Louis.
It's catchy. That refrain kind of gives me a chant vibe as well. So if we have any Luligans or any of our supporters groups listening in here, get this out. We want to definitely plug this on social media and make sure that Dave can get the exposure that he deserves on this. This is freaking cool. I would dream of listening to him playing this song like in a pregame for this. I mean, how cool would that be? Just so cool. So I'm so excited to do playing that. And again, David is an awesome person, obviously uber talented. So we will be putting out a post on all of our social medias after this to make sure that you all know to where go and find that, because it's a full version. There's more verses that we didn't play for you here because you have to go listen to it. So there's your homework after the show.
Jake, people are eating it up in the comments right here. Johnny Cash vibes coming from JT. JT also said Florida Noise is in the chat group right now as well. So cool coming from Emily, also from Emily as well. Going to have to learn this one. Aaron saying that's the greatest thing my ears ever did hear. Hashtag running through walls. Hashtag match day chant ASAP. We're going to push this everywhere because I think this song is great and the guy is even better.
I couldn't afford to just like watch it and hold it to myself. Like I sent it to you. I'm like, I feel like the people need to hear this. So really excited. Dave is the absolute man. I'm so excited to know him now. We talked for 30 minutes. He's like, again, a wonderful man. And I think that he deserves to be heard and seen by all of you because this song is freaking cool. So we'll go into the preview and we'll make sure to give you all the outro as well on the podcast. And you can hear this again from us. But again, we're going to direct you to the full version because it's amazing. So what else is amazing, Justin? This team is heading west into the mountains, into Salt Lake City for the away side of our season series against Real Salt Lake. If you don't remember, we played them actually in our home opener for the MLS campaign already this season. But if you look at last season, we beat them early on in our first 5 games of the season on the road, 4-0. Just an absolute smackdown on the scoreline. It was great to get 3 points on the road like that, especially in RSL, which is a tough place to go and play at elevation. And then at home, they had the upper hand on us. We lost 3-1 in that one. We had a good response that they're going down early, but a second half that was just not great. And I think we saw that happen kind of again in this home fixture as well, where Sam Adeniran created something out of nothing, which he's famous for, but ultimately wasn't enough to get 3 points.
Yeah, unfortunately, in the one that if you guys remember from our first game this year, the 1-1 draw, RSL goes up in the 73rd. They overload one side, do a little tiki-taka, and Arango slots one home. But then 5 minutes later, which was in the 78th, Adeniran comes on 10 minutes before that. It was basically like a very classic City goal where you say Blum wins the ball. Leuven slots in somebody. He slots in Sam, high bouncing ball. Sam puts his head down, heads it forward, beats his defender, barely stays on his feet, cuts back, curls it into the far post. So again, one of those one from Sam that he almost made something from nothing there. Overall, though, Jake, when I was looking back at the stats, we were kind of beaten across the board. Yep. I think we were lucky to get out of there with a tie this early in the season. And I think it's time for us to go and take it to them.
Especially in the second half. I remember watching that, and we had, I think, didn't even have anything that registered on the XG until like the 75th minute. So it was a brutal second half, and I think you got to learn from this game and now take it to them, like you said, away from home. So we've already covered this team already once this season, so I'll kind of gloss over some of the off-season moves. They brought in, I'm going to highlight 2, Matty Crooks from Middlesbrough, who obviously in the championship in England, he's a great central midfielder. He's already chipping in for them on the goals contributions tally, both goals and assists. He's just a veteran, I'd say, of the game, and someone that's probably either going to be, I'd say most likely coming off the bench for them. I think he came off the bench last match for them, but an impact player regardless, and has tons and tons of experience and talent. But on the opposite side of this, talent-wise, definitely, but experience-wise, no. Fidel Barajas, which we're actually going to cover more in the players to watch. I'm really selfishly excited about seeing him because he wasn't a part of the last match he played. He's a 17-year-old dual national. So I read that he's actually capped for Mexico on the U17 front, but you could still file a one-time switch, and he's dual national, meaning he's also American. So could we be able to tempt Fidel into coming into the national team setup? And the reason why I'm excited about that is he was the young player of the year last year in the USL championship. He just got his full 90-minute start this past weekend because of some of the absences and international duty. 2 assists. He also hit the post twice. This dude is 17 and producing on this level already. I'm stoked for it. I hope he has a little bit of a quieter game against us, but he's a good player.
Yeah, and we'll bring this in. Emily's already hopping in the comments. So we have a fan that is a RSL fan and a City fan, more of an RSL fan because she lives out there. But basically, whenever they're not playing RSL, she's a City fan. So Emily's hooking us up with a lot of some insider knowledge as well. She says here that Crooks is essentially a Krylak Jr. LOL. I will say another one of their incomers before we go into the outgoing is Alexandros Katarinas from the Polish top tier as well. So a Greek left back that's only 25-year-old just adds a little bit more depth for them at a pretty young age for that. But some big names outgoing, Jake, for them. Jefferson Severino is one that we talked about last year, transferred to Botafogo. That freed up a designated player spot for them. So he was a very creative striker and also high goal scoring contribution from him. And then Damir Krylak, who was a free transfer to Vancouver. That freed up another designated player spot. So they lost their captain with that. And he actually just scored against them last weekend. But very, very much, very similar, honestly, Jake, when I saw it to Stroud's celebration when Stroud scored against Austin. Just put his hands up. No celebrating there. Just had to do your job and get back and restart the game.
Respectful. Always like to see it. So what did this team do last season? They were the 5th seed going to the playoffs. They lost to Houston in the round 1, but they did force Houston into 3 games, which I think was good because Houston was a great side last year, especially towards the end. This year so far, they're 2-2-1 with 7 points collected. At home, they're 1-1-0, and then away 1-1-1. They have a positive 1 goal differential on the season so far. They've played in some pretty cool games this year already. They lost at Miami. They won against LAFC in the snow game. If you all didn't see that, go look that up. It was absolutely incredible, and LA was so out of their element to be playing in this game. So is Real, but Real's probably more comfortable playing in that type of cold and even some of that snow compared to LAFC. They were like, why are we here? Especially a guy like Hugo Lloris leaves Europe to come over here and just get dumped on in inches of snow, and they got trashed in this game. They lost to the Rapids, their Rocky Mountain rivals, but they did beat Vancouver last weekend, which was a big win because Vancouver was off to a hell of a start so far.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jake, one thing I want to mention, as you already talked about LAFC and Hugo Lloris, the news this week, Olivier Giroud, not officially final, correct me if I'm wrong there, Jake, but will be coming to LAFC likely on July 1st this year. The French national team start being at the tip and the bottom. Do you think they're trying to make a little push and do a little something and get a couple other guys from the French national team, turn this into like a little Barcelona team from Miami, or what do you think they're working on?
I don't think they're working on that because, frankly, they don't need to. I think they're going to be well in the mixer all throughout this season, and then they'll get Giroud coming off of Euros tournament where he'll likely have featured pretty prominently for France, which is crazy. He still does that, but he produces one of the better French players, in his generation. And he's going to arrive, fully on form, fully fit, maybe legs a little tired from just the season rolling into Euros. So he's not going to have the longest time with LAFC prior to the playoffs, but they'll be in the mix. And I'm sure that he will bring a lot of class to that forward line. They haven't had a true 9 recently, but can you imagine playing with a front 3 and 2 of those guys are Denis Bouanga and Olivier Giroud? I mean, he's still pumping in goals at AC Milan. They're number 2 in Serie A right now.
Yeah, and then you have an anchor in the back of Hugo Lloris. So it's one of those. I mean, it's one of those cities you'll see at Miami and LA. It'll happen a lot where some of these bigger stars are starting to come over, and it's not at the end of their career like it used to be with Beckham and Zlatan and Piero. It'll start to be kind of while they're still in their prime, not in their prime, but still competing at a very high level. So, but let's talk about the team that we're going to be playing on Saturday, Jake, especially the key players to watch. And I'll bring us into the first one, Chicho Arango. We talked about him originally. In our first game as well, 29-year-old designated player from Medellin, Colombia. He is 5'10", 155 pounds, 6 goals, 2 assists for RSL, and only 8.5 full 90s played last season. After being acquired from Pachuca, he already has 2 goals and an assist, starting all 5 games and playing all but 5 minutes so far in the first 5 games this season. He's 5th in the league with 21 shots, but only 5 of those have been on target, and his 2.14 XG is 11th in the MLS. This guy's creating a lot of goal scoring opportunities for RSL and honestly keeping them where they're at with 7 points.
And he actually broke out with LAFC prior to moving away and then now back into MLS with RSL. He's just an absolute game breaker of a player. So got to keep an eye on him. Diego Luna, another one. He had a breakout season, I'd say, last year. And he is a U.S. men's national, U.S. youth national product. He's a smaller guy in terms of stature, but a little bit on the thicker side. And honestly, it doesn't slow him down much. He's got some of the trickiest feet, a very great skill set. and they just tied him down long-term to a new deal that runs through 2026 with options through 2028 and elevated him to a U22 initiative roster spot. So they value him clearly. I think that he could fetch a pretty big transfer fee if he were to leave. And I think they're also, they're trying to keep him there, but I think they're also protecting their value. And he's a guy that came out of the USL as well, had a great time in the USL. Same with Fidel Barajas, which we'll mention again for a second here. But the last player we had before honorable mentions was Andre Gomez, who is their center back. Both he and Luna missed this last game entirely due to international duty, but I'm expecting them to come back in full force for this one. He's a Colombian 21-year-old center back, like I said, 2 goals versus LAFC in the famous snow game and 2 assists starting in all 4 games played. So this dude's putting out numbers as a center back. So he's, I think, looking to make a bigger impact this season than last season. He only started half of those games in the prior season, but his goal tally and his assist tally is building up.
Absolutely. And then we have a couple honorable mentions, Jake. We had 1 or 2 in here, but thanks again to Emily for bringing this in. She sent us a long DM, and I'm going to use some of her quotes here, but she said, I think Barajas is a big one. Fidel Barajas, we already talked about the 17-year-old dual national winger, became the 6th player in MLS history to record a multi-assist a game at just the age of 17. Anderson Julio is a great super sub, parentheses, much like Sam Adeniran for STL, but he did well on the start that he had on Saturday as well. He subbed into the first 4 games so far this year, only playing 48 minutes in total. But then he started and scored against Vancouver. And then Emeke Eneli is a menace in the midfield. Full name, Jake, I'm going to let you try to take that one.
Chukwuemeka.
He's a 24-year-old midfielder. Started and played the full 90s in all 5 of their games so far this year with 1 goal. So those are rounding us out for our key players to watch. And thank you again, Emily, for the DM.
Yeah, Emily, some insider knowledge. Let's go. But I guess we're enemies officially on Saturday. Just for that, though. The rest of the season, we're good. So you can be back in our good graces, Emily, then. But thank you for the content. So looking at the coach and the formation kind of style, by the way, getting some good questions here. We're going to get back to some of these because we're going to get to our predictions and results. So, Sean, I will get to that, promise. And they are coached by Pablo Mastroeni. He is entering his 2nd full season with RSL, usually plays some sort of variation of a 4-4-2 or 4-2-3-1 or 4-1-3-2, just usually the 4 in the back and a pretty stacked midfield. And at least Chicho Arango up top, maybe with a partner, maybe not. So I would say when you look at this team, you look at possession is a big element for this team, but it's not your super methodical and slow moving possession and progression. It's long balls, more direct attack, and a mid block when you're out of possession. So when you think about where they lay their line, when they really start to engage you, kind of picture the middle third of the field. That's what I would kind of call a mid block. They're not going to make it easy for a team to progress out of that and into their own defensive third. So that's what they'll kind of force teams to play around them. Historically, RSL is a very, very, very hard team to beat. They don't gather the most wins. They don't amass a ton of losses. They make it very, very difficult to beat them. And I think when they bring in quality players like Chicho Arango, they hold on to guys like Diego Luna, they're bound to have a good, dangerous attack. Justin, I watched some highlights on them just to kind of get the eye test as well, outside of the match that we watched against us. What I saw was a lot of early crosses, and I'm saying early as in before they even break kind of the plane of the 18, they are serving in whipped in balls to either near post or back post and looking for service from their strikers. And a lot of just direct balls into their strikers' feet, like a Chicho Arango or Anderson Julio, whoever's playing, to either hold and wait for some other players to build up around them. But they're capable of some nice, pretty soccer. Their goal against us was phenomenal, if you don't remember.
No, absolutely. And I think that's what we talked about. That's how they got their goal. They worked it down one side, did a little 1-2 touch, and then they ended up slotting one home. And I think kind of bringing that all together and how is that applying to the season for them so far in the trends and storylines? Generally, 2024 at home, as we said, now that we're 5 games in, we're only looking forward to 2024 and on. We're not going backwards. So right now at home, they have a win and a loss, which would give them a 1.5 points per match with a +2 goal differential. If you talk about that 3-0 dub and then that 2-1 dub. And then also strengths, we talked about this already, working and creating it up and down the wings, individual skill players with Arango and all the other guys that we talked about individually in our key players to watch. And unfortunately, set piece defending, which is one that I've been looking for us to try to continue to one, increase more of our goals there, but two, our set piece defending has not been good so far this year. So them having a strength in that is not something I'm very excited about.
But our set piece scoring has been decent. So we'll get to that in some of the goals here. But offensively, this team's producing at a 1.51 per 90 XG, which puts them about 13th in the league. Not bad, and obviously not great. They're producing at 1.25 goals for per game, so slightly or underperforming their XG, but they're finding a lot of good chance creation. At home specifically, they generated 1.4 XG and 4 of their 7 goals. When you look about timing for them, this is, by the way, I will caveat, this is still from last year because they've scored 7 goals. Actually, no, I reflected this for 2024, so I'll correct myself. So it's not as meaningful at this point when you've only scored 7 goals, but they've scored most of their goals, about 60% of them, in the first half, the 16 to 30 and the 31 to 45, and then another chunk in the 61st to 75th. So a team that's pretty all around dangerous, I would say. We'll flip that when we get to goals against. And they're not a heavy shooting team or shots on target team, but they're number 7 in goals per shot on target. So they're very effective when they do find their chances. And if I split it into open play and set pieces, they're the top 10 in shots in open play. So again, they can carve you, they can go direct, and the number 3 in XG in open play. So keep this ball. Basically, last weekend would have been a bummer for them, having the constant stoppage, a lot of disruptions in the rhythm. They would have struggled, but in open play, they're a great team. Set pieces, not scoring a ton, but they're at least generating shots off their set pieces.
Yeah, and I'll say, and not only we talk about it can be pretty soccer. They're 56.8% in possession, is number 3 in the MLS. They're top 10 in passes, mostly are long and medium, as we've already talked about, into the forward's feet. Top 10 in progressive carries and passes as well. They're number 2 in passes into the final third. So that's really where you talk about it. Right before they enter the 18, that's where they're looking to connect and try to find an open guy there. Shifting into the defense, their XGA of 1.44 per 90 is pretty average in the MLS right now. And their 1.20 goals against per game is top 10 best in the league. So somewhat, I would say, just a little bit of I would say still probably on the upper end of the middle tier of a defense for them. 50% of their goals against come between the 31st and 45th, so just before halftime. And then 33% of them come just before the end of the game, the 76th to 90th. I need some soul juice. I'm stuttering.
I wonder if it has anything to do with fitness or how they play, because you notice that that's 83% of their goals come in the last 15 minutes of each respective half. So maybe something to look out for there if you're Bradley Carnell and team. In open play defensively, they allow the number 6 most shots, and they're the bottom 5 in the expected goals against in open play. So again, dangerous from open play for them in the back line. But set pieces, they've allowed 0 goals, like I mentioned, so far this season. So we've been putting those in like it's been our job so far this year, and something we need to continue to do and carry thread on. But they haven't made it easy. And goalkeeping-wise, they've been pretty good. They have a positive 2.6 post-shot XG minus goals against, just suggesting their goalkeeping has been pretty above average so far this season relative to the chances that have been put on them. So, Justin, keys to this game as we start to kind of think about it now with all that context considered, I'm going to break my first 2 into halves. First half, I think you've got to be a really resilient team. Obviously, we know they carry a pretty significant threat in the first half. I think just looking at their stats, they haven't even lost at home yet in a first half. So I think we need to, my goal for this team is getting into this right now. Do not lose the first half. If you're tied, if you're winning, that's great, but close them out in that first half. If it's 1-1, that's even fine. But if it'd be just allowing 0 goals, I think would be a hell of a start for this team defensively on the road, because I know they're going to burn out a little bit in the second half with our playing style.
Yeah, and then you haven't mentioned here, second half, we need to close out and keep the pressure on them for the full 90. RSL has not won a home second half yet this season. I mean, it's an early season when you talk about they've played 2 games, but it's a good thing to note, especially when they're looking to score late. So if we can lock that up, that's going to be one of my goals as well when we get further into this. But I would say also, we've talked about it, that they do not allow a lot of good chances. They may allow a decent amount of shots, but when we do get a good chance, we need to put it away. RSL is a solid defensive team, and they limit their set piece goals, which is something that we can tend to rely on. So we're going to have to focus a little bit more on open play, but we'll talk about that. I think we'll be just fine with our starting 11.
I would say the last thing I'll say is I feel like we've been spotty this year in terms of our lethality or our ability to make the most out of our chances. So I would love for this to be one of those games where we're flipped on, because I just don't think we're going to get a ton from this team, especially on the road. And I think they're going to offer a lot of threat. So I'm looking at the back line, especially the fullbacks this game, and saying, what can you all do for us? Because the 1v1 defending is going to be huge, huge this Saturday. I think with that attacking front that we've talked about already, you can't be diving in. You can't be late to go press your man and let them spin or combine around you. We're prone to those types of things. And I think this could be a big game to not only learn, but hopefully notch yourself in the right direction and show out against a team that carries a lot of threat like this. I think this would be a great, great way for us to learn some serious lessons, not the hard way, but actually go out there and practice what Carnell, I'm sure, is preaching in the locker room.
So, Jake, what is your goal for the whole game?
Yeah, so I said mine, do not lose the first half. I think stay in this game, go in at least even in the first half. I think that gives you a great chance.
And I think mine's similar to that, but in case we go in 0-0 at half, mine is to score first. And I think that's a big goal to have, especially on the road, because when we score first on the road, I need to pull that stat up. I'll pull that up, Jake. But whenever we score first, we are not losing games. I would say away wins when scoring a goal is only one. So obviously that's not very helpful. I will find when the opponent scores first and City wins, we have 7. But when we score first and we win, it's 17.
Yeah.
That is something that we need to focus on and make sure that we don't go down early, especially in one of these away games. And a tough atmosphere, I'd say, up in RSL.
Absolutely. All right. Well, before we get into the starting 11 here, Justin, we've got to talk about our friends, our partners, Hoffman Brothers. And I'm going to give you all another piece of homework really quick. Go change your vents right now. Go change that filter right now. Put us on pause. If you're listening to us on the podcast or listening to us on YouTube, go do that. This is your quarterly reminder. And when you come back, set a quarterly reminder on your phone to do so. And I'm trying to help you out. If you're already beyond that and you pull this thing out and it's black, or honestly, if you can't even find your filter, give Hoffman Brothers a call. 314-664-3011, or visit them online at Hoffman Bros, HOFFMANN bros.com. They're going to help guide you through this, I promise.
And Jake, the last thing I'm going to say, it's March 27th, 4 more days that were a part of their sales goes to Stray Rescue. Look at these little puppies. How can you not want to give back to these guys of all things? So
incredible.
If you love dogs, if you need your house to do a lot better when it comes to electricity, heating, and cooling, call the Hoffman Brothers. Go to hoffmanbros.com. They'll be the ones to take care of you.
JT's parents are doing it. JT in the comments saying they're coming to his parents' house next week. Emily, I'm not sure they go to Phoenix yet. I know they actually operate in Nashville. So if any Nashville listeners, give them a call. But it's really obviously here in St. Louis. They've been here for 40 years. They are a tried and true St. Louis company. So Justin, let's get into the Hoffman Brothers starting 11. Always get hyped to do that. So Justin, you start us off this week. What do you have for your 11?
Well, Jake, I think I'm going to go with Roman Berkey in the back. Thoughts? Cool. Thanks. Anthony Marcanic on the left. I'm actually going to go back to him. I thought Dewar did a good job last game, but I think we can give Marcanic another shot back at it. Now with the news of, it sounds like Parker will be good to go on Saturday, so I'm going to pair him with Yarrow, knowing that Nilsson's out with a broken rib, and I'm going back to Totlin on the right after getting his first assist last game. What do you think about that back line?
Fully agree. I think Marcanic, it's not because I think he's better or Dewar's better than him. I think it's a full-on competition at this point. You rotate them, in my opinion, until someone comes out the better man.
All right. And then I'm going to actually go with, shocker, Celio on the left. I do still like the Dirk and Ostrak thing in the middle right now. Obviously, with Leuven being out, I know that Blum will likely be back. I actually would be surprised. You know what, Jake? I'm going to go with this. I'm going to switch it up. I'm going to go Durkin and Blum. I'm taking Ostrak out of this one. And I like what you did here. I'm going with Alm on the right side. I think it's one where Indy could probably use a break. We've been using his motor quite a bit. And I think if Alm is fully healthy and can do a full 90, or at least on a minutes restriction, get him to like the 70th minute, which is, I think, what we typically do with a lot of our wingers. Let's start Alm and see what we can do with him there. And I'm going with the two big guys up top because I think that we are starting to create something here. And we already talked about it multiple times. It's not a season where we can just go with one or the other. And I think these guys are starting to click, and I'd like to see them do it on the road this weekend.
Yeah, I like that lineup. I'm still going with Celio, Durkin, Ostrak, Alm in my midfield. I think the most important thing to me is Alm there. I think he's ready to at least start. I don't know if he's ready for a full 90 yet, but the value of having a Celio and an Alm who both are responsible enough to contribute defensively, but both talented enough, more than enough, to create offense for us and give guys like a Denaran and give guys like Klaus service. It's a very, very tempting thing to go with, even if you don't think Alm is full 90 fit yet. So I'm very down for that. We did not start a Denaran Klaus in the first RSL game. We actually just started Klaus. I believe Thorson also started that match as well. So I'm looking forward to seeing them go against this team. I really do feel like Carnell is just going to kind of force this one through and just make those two play together, because it starts to become a case, Justin, in my opinion, of I still don't believe they have fit together in the best starting 11. But if you look at your best 11 players on your team, they're both in it. So it's just like get your best guys out on the pitch and hopefully they can combine and create magic.
Jake, did you just say the pitch?
I did.
Get to the pitch. If you guys didn't get there on Sunday, I don't know what you're doing. I mean, I got to go get a Parker Pilsner from Tim Parker himself. Got a nice picture with Jake Nerwinski as well. Those guys are extremely nice and just as nice as all the boys that showed out as well. You had AZ, Sam, Akil Watts, Marcanic, Celio. All of these boys were there to come support them. So anytime they have these things, I don't know why you wouldn't come out for a little Sunday fun day. You don't have to drink to go. Get some food, come watch some sports. Anytime of the year, get to the pitch. The atmosphere is incredible. I'll be there again this weekend, 8:30 p.m. Frozen Irish coffee's on deck.
Awesome, Justin. So I had a topic in here. I want to save it for the recap or the next preview since we're running a bit long on here, but we've got a lot of questions and comments around Sam Adeniran and what we think about value. You all have seen our polls out there and the questions we put out for what's his value in terms of market right now. What would you accept for a fee? A lot of this is honestly, it's important right now because of the timing and the term of his contract and how important he is to us. So we're going to get to this topic. I want to dedicate the right amount of time to it. So a little teaser there. But what you don't need a teaser for is our latest Sin Bin episode with George Gansner is out and streaming fully on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, all of your podcast domains. It was a great one, Justin. Obviously, always a pleasure to talk to George, but to break down what transpired with the new CBA and PSRA finally, getting on the same page with Pro/MLS. It's just a joy to finally know that we're going to have the best referees in our country reffing these matches, or even in our continent reffing these matches, and no longer having, these people that are pulling off these college games and lower leagues. So I'm just excited to get that and hopefully some of the new rules. So go check that out if you haven't listened to it yet. We just put it out today, so you'll have 2 episodes in your download. So make sure you're subscribed.
And this is a perfect time for that. I mean, these sin bins are just enough to keep you just as hungry thinking about and listening to these things that George is talking about. I think this one went to 18 minutes. Yep. It's a perfect just on your way to work tomorrow morning or on your way home tonight, depending on where you're working. Plug into it. George has a couple different ideas that I loved and a couple different games to call out. When you guys think that we had a tough game against DC, he called out 2 specifically in our podcast that you can go watch. I know one of them at least was the full first half of the Columbus versus was the Charlotte FC game. So, and then we mentioned another one, just the last 3 minutes of another. So there's been a lot of blunders going across the MLS. We are hoping to get these guys back on the field on Saturday, talking about a couple new possible rules and when those might be implemented again now that we're going to have the main refs back. But George is an incredible guy, does an incredible job, and just something very unique that we get to touch on, and excited to continue to do that with him throughout the season.
All right. So let's get to our predictions, Grahammers, Justin, and try to get to the listener questions here. The odds for this one are looking like City at plus 255 underdogs, RSL at minus 115, and the draw at plus 265. Over under set at 2.5, over at minus 155. The under at plus 120. I have got, unfortunately, a draw as my prediction this week again. And I saw the question, Sean, I'll just tackle it right now from you here. I do think that even with the draw and this being our 5th in a row, potentially, yes, they are getting old as can be. I do not want to draw by any means, but a draw against RSL, again, is your undefeated streak on the road continuing. I don't want the undefeated streak with the draws at home continuing, but the ability for us to keep collecting points, however small, on the road, I think really will pay off as long as we can get things right here at home. So that's my prediction, is a 1-1 draw. My bets, before I kick it over to you, Justin, I'm going back to the parlay stream. Normally I would double chance it here, but I know that you have that as yours. So I'm going to go to both teams to score and the under 4.5. I do think both teams will carry a threat in this game. We'll both get chances, but I do not think this is going to be a fireworks show either.
Jake, I really like that bet. The odds of a game like this having 5 goals in it, I know we have 2 high-powered offenses, but I just don't see it getting there on the road. However, I'm predicting a win. I'm tired of this draw stuff, and I don't think we're going to go out there and lose. So I'm predicting a 2-1 dub. That leads straight into my bets. I will take the double chance. We talk about it every time. If we get double chance anywhere near even money, I will take it. So at minus 120 every time, I will take that. The way double chance, Jake, in all of our games has hit 46% of the time. So you're looking at a 50-50 shot, which I think is pretty fair for the minus 120. So I'm going to take it. Another thing that I will sprinkle on, just solely because of how we've been playing and how offensive we've been, I'm taking us to do a team total over 1.5 goals at plus 155. And Jake, I know you mentioned you wanted Sam Dinneran goal last game for plus 150. He's plus 230 this time. Klaus is plus 225. That Klaus one is what I'm sprinkling on. We talked about it. Having that PK go in the back of the net. It's like Steph Curry finally seeing a 3 go through. We're about to unload on the rest of this league. Do a little bit of a Klaus for plus 225 anytime goal, but I'm hammering the double chance at minus 120.
Awesome. Well, any questions? I'm looking through the comments right now. I see one here from Nick on Instagram, providing some entertainment while Spectrum is out. Thanks, boys. Absolutely, Nick. Happy to do that for you. That sucks. Spectrum is known to do such a thing. Unfortunate there. I'm not seeing other questions that we have yet to cover. Justin, anything else from the folks here?
I mean, another plug for that. If your Spectrum's out, go listen to the George episode. There's another 18 minutes. That'll get you into your night. If Spectrum's out, if you have Wi-Fi, or is it maybe that's along with Wi-Fi? I was going to say with that, you can go watch the first half of the Columbus versus Charlotte game. I don't know why I'm having such a hard time with that. And then also go watch the TikTok that we were just talking about that we opened up. If you guys weren't here, and I know we've been growing in numbers and pushing closer to 80 or 90 now. We only had a couple, probably 20 or 30 in the beginning. Go watch the beginning of this episode and the song that Jake found that was DM'd us, that was on TikTok. This guy rocks.
Better yet, go do that and then go to our social media. Literally in the next 10 minutes, we are going to put out on socials the links, the clip that we played of David Wittenauer and his song about St. Louis City SC, which is fantastic. Should be up for Oscar. Sorry, not Oscar, but for a Grammy Record of the Year this year. That's my nomination for it. And we're going to send you the direct links for the full entire version, almost 3 minutes, right? On Facebook and TikTok. It's fantastic. You have to listen to it. There's your homework. Hope you all enjoy. We'll be back with you on Sunday for the recap of St. Louis City RSL. And we're so excited for it. And thank you all so much for listening. And we'll catch you then. Everyone take care. All for City.
All for City.